What is going on, everyone? I want to talk about Chris Long and the retirement because if you dive into it a little bit more than just, Chris Long retired, there's more to the story. It's not just the fact that he decided his time was up and he put up a Twitter picture of him with the red Solo cup with a nice view. It goes deeper than that. So let's discuss it because my question here is, did the Eagles make the right decision by not really coming up with a situation to make Chris Long happy? And let's dive into it. So, Chris Long last year played 59% of the snaps. He had 6.5 sacks. He had 2 forced fumbles. And he was a nice guy to step in there, a nice veteran guy who's been around the league, who has a ton of experience. And let's be real, one hell of a locker room guy and a leader off the field, right? What the Eagles had in store for him for this upcoming season was about 10 to 15 snaps. It was a very, very tiny role with a $5.6 million cap hit. So if you were to move his role to that, there would be no reason to pay him that much money, which is where the Eagles and Chris Long kind of butted heads. Chris Long wanted a bigger role than that, which I think he should have a bigger role than that. But this is the logic that doesn't make sense. So we let Chris Long retire, essentially. People want to say that he retired on his own. He chose to walk away from the game. But what happened was the Eagles sort of forced him to do so based off of what they had in store for Chris Long for this upcoming season. But here's what doesn't make sense to me. We don't want Chris Long, but we're going to believe in Josh Sweat. We're going to believe in Sharif Miller. We're going to believe in some guys that came off the street for practice squad. I don't understand the logic there. What if there's injury? How come we're trusting Josh Sweat with a bigger role over someone like Chris Long? I'm not going to sit here and tell you Chris Long is the biggest game changer in the world. He's going to be as dominant as, say, a Fletcher Cox in their respected positions. I'm not going to the extreme like that. But what tells me, or what tells you, that Josh Sweat is going to have more production than Chris Long? What tells me that Derek Barnett's going to be able to stay healthy this year? What if there is a key injury and that role needs to be filled, and now we have to rely on someone like Sharif Miller, who's way too raw for this? Way too raw for this. You take a look at this line as a whole, and we lose Michael Bennett, and now we lose Chris Long. I'm just not thrilled with how we executed this. I'm going to have to sit here and say I trust Howie. I trust that he has another game plan, or he has a real big belief in Josh Sweat. Maybe that Josh Sweat's key. Maybe he's some stud that we don't know about because we haven't seen him too much. I don't know. But I don't like the way that this was handled. I think it's silly to think Chris Long has no value on this team outside of 10 to 15 snaps per game. Why that extreme of a drop-off? Why that much different of what we saw last year out of Chris Long? It wasn't the most insane productive year out of him, but I have more confidence in a veteran like Chris Long than I do the other guys. So taking a look at Graham, we have Brandon Graham, Cox, Jackson, Barnett, Curry, Jernigan, Sweat, Miller. That's our lineup right now. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's trash, but I just think it could be better keeping Chris Long. I would have tried to keep Chris Long. Now, one thing you have to play in, I mentioned this at the top, was the $5.6 million cap hit. Well, we all know, and we all been hearing about the rumors, especially as of late, Carson Wentz is looking to get a deal. Realistically, the Eagles and Carson Wentz, they're looking to get something together here to pay the kid, to give him a monstrous payday at the quarterback position. And I just wonder if the $5.6 million played a role into that. Now, knowing Howie Roseman and knowing how he does the cap, I'm shocked that that's the difference. After all the cap space that we've created so far, this $5.6 million, there's no other way to mix around things and create a new contract and put bonuses in. And like, if he wanted Chris Long that badly, couldn't he have figured out a way to move around the money like he's done for every single other person on this team, so it seems? It's just odd to me. It's just odd to me that they would want to subtract Chris Long to that degree. I think he's got so much value in the locker room. We're it's weird, first off, as a fan base, to be so connected to a guy who's only been here for, 2 years? I'm not emotionally tied to Chris Long. I think he's awesome. I love him as a player. I think he's a great dude, of course, but I'm not emotionally tied. I'm not going to cry if Chris Long walks. I just, mentally, when you use logic and you use the thought process on how they came up with this decision, I'm having a hard time figuring it out that way. If he had no production, if he had zero production last year and he wasn't worth it and he's getting older and he literally couldn't move anymore, I'd say okay. But that's not the case. And for them to go with other guys over him, and not guys that are ready yet. I don't know if Josh Sweat is ready yet. I don't know. Well, I definitely know Sharif Miller is not ready yet. So why them over Chris Long? Why more belief in them over someone who can step in there and who's had a ton of experience in this league? I think you lose a lot in the locker room. Not only does the fan base love Chris Long, but so do your favorite players. So does Carson Wentz. So does Fletcher Cox. So does Doug Peterson. So does every single person, Malcolm Jenkins. Everyone. The dude donated his entire stash of money last year to charity. Played for free. Or was it last year or the year before? I forget off the top of my head. But regardless, he's done it. So you're losing a big piece in the locker room. Carson's contract, I think at the end of the day, is playing a big factor in it. It has to. But when I sit there and I look at what he did last year and Derek Barnett going down and him stepping in and playing 59% of the snaps, he wasn't awful. He was average. But what do you expect the other guys to be? That you're putting him, that you're putting in his shoes. Now, my only thing that I will say makes some sort of sense, but I don't think this is the reason why. He was contemplating whether he wanted to retire or not. At the end of the day, he wanted to play, but he wanted to have a bigger role than what the Eagles gave him for this upcoming season. But he was contemplating, should I not? Should I not? And I just feel like if you're not 100% in, that's a little bit of a red flag. Now, if Chris Long committed here, I don't think he would have pulled out halfway and say, yeah, I'm not feeling it. If he was mentally prepared to go into it as a professional, he would have been 100%. But he was flip-floppy. I don't know. It got late into the offseason. Still nothing. Who really knows? And coming from experience, and I know I'm not an NFL professional player, but I had to make a decision on, do I still want to play college hockey, or am I still in love with it? Do I still have 100% left into it? And I realized I don't have 100% into it. I want to pursue something else. And I know how tough it can be because in the back end of my sophomore year, I wasn't 100% in. I was mentally checked out, but I still had to go to work every day. I still had to wake up at 6 a.m. for lifts. I still had to go to practice every day. And I'm just going through the motion and not giving it my all. And that could be something that occurs. And I also hear, well, what if someone does go down and we call up Chris Long? I don't know if Chris Long's a middle of the season type guy. He's either in or he's not in. Because you can't just hop in from retirement and say, I'm ready to go again. Week 7. There's so much involved. You got to be in shape. You got to stay in shape. You got to get into football mode. It doesn't just work like that. So you ask me, bros, what are you saying here? I'm saying, did the Eagles really handle this right? Because I don't know if they did. I don't understand why his role would drop to that extreme. That's the only way he could come back. A 10 to 12 snap guy. After playing 59% last year. Because who you're replacing him with? Huh? You're going with Josh Sweat. You're going with Sharif Miller. These are the type of guys you're filling the role with. It's not like Vinny Curry's some stud. Vinny Curry, it's similar to Chris Long. Nice piece, veteran guy, can hang in there for snaps, but they're not game changers, so why not Chris Long? And that's the question I raise, and I want to know your thoughts down below on this, because there is more to it than Chris Long just decided to retire. He decided to retire because the Eagles was not giving him what he thought for next season. They weren't giving him a big enough role. And it's very interesting. It's very interesting. So let me know. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.